Long before Europe learned to write with ink and parchment, its stories were carved into stone, wood, bone, and metal. These markings were not mere decoration. They were messages, silent whispers from a forgotten world. We call them runes. Runes are often imagined as mystical symbols used by Vikings to curse enemies or divine the future. But this image is only half the truth. Runes were once a living writing system, used to record names, ownership, prayers, warnings, and memory itself. Today, they remain scattered across Europe, etched into grave markers, weapons, jewelry, and standing stones. Yet their voices are faint, fragmented, and often misunderstood. The word rune comes from the Proto-Germanic runo, meaning secret or mystery. Even in their own time, runes were associated with hidden knowledge. They were not widely taught. Literacy was rare. To carve runes was to possess power, the power to preserve a thought beyond death. Unlike Latin, runes were never standardized. They evolved across regions and centuries, splintering into multiple alphabets. Some runes remain undeciphered. Others are fiercely debated by scholars. Were they purely phonetic or symbolic, practical or magical, or both? Christian monks later dismissed runes as pagan relics. Many inscriptions were destroyed, defaced, or buried beneath churches. What survived did so by accident, forgotten in bogs, reused in buildings, or hidden in remote landscapes. Yet runes endure. From the forests of Scandinavia to the wind-swept plains of Germany and the British Isles, these markings tell a story older than kingdoms. A story of warriors and traders, poets and priests, gods and men. A story written not with ink, but with blades and belief. In this series, we will journey into that lost language. We will uncover where runes came from, how they were used, why they vanished, and what they truly meant to the people who carved them. Not myths, not fantasy, but the closest truth history allows. Because some languages never truly die. They wait. The oldest known runic alphabet is called the Elder Futhark, named after its first 6 characters, F-U-A-R-K. It emerged around the 2nd century CE at the edge of the Roman world among early Germanic tribes. Where did it come from? This question has haunted linguists for centuries. The most accepted theory suggests that runes were inspired by Italic alphabets, possibly brought north by Germanic mercenaries serving Rome. But inspiration is not imitation. The Elder Futhark was adapted for carving. It's sharp, straight lines perfect for wood and stone, unlike the curves of Latin script. The Elder Futhark consisted of 24 characters, each representing a sound, but also something more. Many runes had names tied to objects, forces, or concepts. Fehu, cattle, wealth. Ura's strength, the wild ox. Rado, journey. Algi's protection. This duality mattered. To carve a rune was not just to write a sound. It was to invoke meaning. When a warrior inscribed a waz, the rune of the god Tyr, he wasn't simply writing a letter. He was calling upon justice, honor, and sacrifice. Early inscriptions were brief and practical. Names on weapons, ownership marks, dedications. A spearhead from Denmark bears a single word, Tylarids, for the one who rides toward battle. A chilling message, carved before blood was spilled. Runes were not written casually. Carving took time and effort. Every mark was deliberate. This scarcity is why so few long runic texts exist today, and why each one is priceless. By the 6th century, the Elder Futhark began to fragment. As Germanic tribes migrated, languages changed, and so did their runes. New alphabets emerged. Old meanings shifted. But in these earliest runes, we glimpse a world forming its identity, standing between Rome's shadow and its own ancient beliefs. The alphabet was young. Its power was growing. Runes were never just letters. In Norse mythology, their origin is divine and violent. The god Odin, seeker of all knowledge, sacrificed himself to himself. He hung from a world tree, Yggdrasil, pierced by his own spear, for 9 nights without food or water. Only then did the runes reveal themselves. This myth matters because it reflects how runes were perceived, as earned knowledge, not given freely. Runes were used in rituals, charms, and curses. Archaeological finds show runes carved on amulets, bones, and everyday objects, sometimes repeated, sometimes inverted, sometimes combined in ways that defy simple reading. One famous inscription reads, I carve runes of protection. Another warns, may be restless who breaks this stone. These are not metaphors. They were believed to work. Certain runes were associated with healing, others with victory or fertility. The act of carving, often accompanied by spoken words, was thought to activate the rune's power. Blood may have been used. Silence may have been required. Yet this was not chaos. Rune magic followed rules. Traditions passed orally from master to student. Misuse was dangerous. A wrongly carved rune could backfire. This sacred role explains why runes remain limited to elites. Chieftains, priests, warriors. They were not meant for mass communication. They were tools of intention. When Christianity spread across Europe, this sacred aspect became a threat. Runes were labeled demonic. Laws forbade their use. Priests smashed stones and recarved them with crosses. But belief does not vanish easily. Even as churches rose, runes persisted. In secret, in folk traditions, in remote villages where the old gods still whispered, and the language endured quietly. By the 8th century, the runic world changed dramatically. The Elder Futhark faded, replaced by a streamlined system known as the Younger Futhark, used during the Viking Age. Strangely, this new alphabet had fewer runes, only 16, despite Old Norse having more sounds than earlier Germanic languages. This made runic writing ambiguous. One rune could represent multiple sounds. Context became everything. Why simplify? The answer may lie in speed and expansion. Vikings traveled fast, by ship, by trade routes, by raids. Runes needed to be carved quickly on stone monuments, memorials, and property markers. Efficiency mattered more than precision. This period produced thousands of runestones, especially in Sweden. These stones speak of voyages, deaths, kinship, and pride. He died in the East. She raised the stone for her son. May God help his soul. A striking blend of pagan script and Christian belief. Yes, Christianity did not erase runes overnight. Instead, it adapted them. Some rune stones depict crosses alongside serpents and Norse imagery. The old language served the new faith, a quiet compromise between worlds. Runes also traveled. They appear in England, Ireland, Greenland, even Constantinople. In the Hagia Sophia, a Viking carved his name. Halfdan was here, a human moment, frozen in stone. By the end of the Viking Age, runes were no longer sacred secrets. They had become public memory. History carved into landscapes. But change was coming, and the runes would soon fall silent. Runes were never one language. They were many. As Europe fragmented into cultures and kingdoms, regional runic systems emerged. In England and Frisia, the Anglo-Saxon Futhark expanded to over 30 runes, adapting to the complexities of Old English. Some runes represented sounds unique to the language. Others encoded poetry and riddles. One such riddle reads, "I am a strange creature. I change my voice." Scholars still debate its meaning. In Eastern Europe, runes appear in unexpected places, possibly among the Goths, or along ancient trade routes connecting Scandinavia to Byzantium. Some inscriptions defy classification entirely, resisting every known alphabet. These anomalies fuel controversy. Were there lost runic traditions? Or are we misreading symbols meant for something else entirely? Medieval manuscripts mention runes as rustic letters, the writing of peasants and sorcerers. Yet in some regions, runes were used longer than Latin, especially in rural Scandinavia, surviving into the 18th century on calendars, tools, and farm records. This survival was not rebellion. It was habit. While kings wrote in Latin, farmers carved what they knew. Every forgotten rune system represents a road not taken, a linguistic branch cut short by power, religion, and standardization. Languages don't just die. They are silenced. Runes did not disappear because they failed. They were replaced. Latin script arrived with Christianity, administration, and education. It was portable, flexible, and backed by institutional power. Runes had none of that. They belonged to oral cultures, not bureaucracies. Churches banned them. Kings discouraged them. Schools ignored them. Over time, rune carvers died without apprentices. Meanings blurred. Sounds shifted. What was once knowledge became superstition. By the High Middle Ages, Runes were seen as relics of a barbaric past, and so Europe forgot how to read its own stones. In the 17th and 18th centuries, antiquarians began documenting runestones. At first, their interpretations were wildly wrong. Runes were linked to Atlantis, lost tribes, even giants. But slowly, patterns emerged. Linguists compared inscriptions. Archaeologists mapped locations. A language reassembled itself from fragments. By the 19th century, runes could be read again, not perfectly, but enough to hear echoes. Yet this revival carried danger. Extremist ideologies twisted runes into symbols of racial purity, distorting history. Scholars pushed back, reclaiming runes as cultural artifacts, not weapons. The battle for meaning continues. Modern pop culture has buried runes under fantasy. They are not spell letters, not cosmic keys, not universal symbols. They were human tools, used by real people with real fears, hopes, and limits. The magic was belief, and belief shaped history. Runes teach us something vital. Writing is power. Who gets to write? Who decides meaning? Who is remembered? Every rune is a choice to speak into the future. And sometimes the future listens. Runes were never fully lost. They waited in stone and soil in silence. And now they speak again, not as magic, but as memory. If ancient symbols still whisper to you, don't walk away. Like, subscribe, and join the Crit Stories as we uncover forgotten languages, lost knowledge, and buried truths history tried to silence.